So we're live.
So I see, yep,
All
I
right.
see now that we are live. Do you want to go ahead and introduce our guest today, Ree?
Sure. Yes, or we can let him introduce himself and tell us where he's running. John, would you like to?
Sure. I'm John Liccione. I'm a rebel Democratic candidate for Congress down here in Florida, District 13, where I'm running to unseat um, Putin shill Anna Paulina Luna, who's always on Putin's side and against Ukraine. And so this is sort of a swing district. There's more Republicans, a lot more than Democrats, but the non-party affiliated can't, they decide the elections here. So this is a flippable district. I'm one of three Democratic candidates. I am the anti-establishment Democratic candidate, not particularly by choice. It's just the way the party hands the deck, the cards to me. So I lean into the rebel, the rebel label. I'm a rebel in this sense. I'm not the establishment back candidate. There's two of us that are like we're like starved of all resources and donor, and the big donor class. So we're fighting the fight, and so that's sort of a little bit about me. I'm an Air Force veteran, NSA intelligence analyst years ago when I was younger, and now I'm a cybersecurity executive. I've just founded my own company before I decided to run this time called Ballateer, not Palantir, but Ballateer. It's election integrity defense on the side of the angels. And our slogan is tenable elections. You make your elections tenable. So that's a little bit about me and what gets me up in the fighting mood every morning. And so I'm in this to defend your voting rights, to fight corruption, to prosecute the war on child sex trafficking, which I've declared. I declared a war on child sex trafficking in my first press release, and a fierce defender of Ukraine, anti-Putin, anti-Putin Trump. I say Putin Trump because they're like an integrated evil entity. And then when you add Anna Luna to the triumvirate of evil, it's like there's no space in between the three of them, right? They're just the same, weird sort of
Evil.
cabal that are well, in her case, enabling child sex trafficking through, unless it's the women that are where sex trafficking grew up and then helped sex traffic other girls. She doesn't like them, but she gives Trump a pass. So,
I
um,
was reading that she made a name for herself in this latest campaign, largely through denialism of the 2020 election, which to me is just the most ridiculous thing to still be talking about in 2026.
well, here's the thing about election integrity. I don't say election denial because I talk with certain Republicans that are men and women of honor that are about election integrity, right? And whether it's not, I'm denying 2020, but but I'm accepting 2024. On even on these people on the Republican side, just because Trump did lose, there what maybe was no election fraud in 2020 doesn't mean there wasn't election fraud in 2016 to 2024 because there was. And so Democrats sort of like it made it sort of the third rail to talk about don't deny an election. So that's why, I'm not that guy. I've got the receipts, I've got the data, the analytics, and the records that show, election fraud going on down here in Florida in a very is sort of a different kind of election fraud.
So do you
So
think that there was so much election fraud that it likely tipped the balance in the 2024 election?
absolutely, yeah. So if there's a great organization called Election Truth Alliance, um, and and the whole Elon Musk, there's an anomaly in the matrix stuff. So basically, what happened in 2024? Well, first of all, um, Kamala Harris, instead of fighting for election integrity, I mean, after she lost, she just gave up and walked away and went on a book tour
Yeah.
because Democrats don't challenge elections, right? That's got to end, right? I'm fighting that fight. So in 2024, if you look at so Harris lost all the swing districts in all the swing states by just enough so there wouldn't be a recount. So Trump, people were voting really high for Trump, and but then down here, down ballot, they're voting for Harris, right? So Elon, my theory of this, and this is shared amongst a lot of people, is that I can't prove it because I don't have inside access, but Elon launched his direct-to-cell satellite network in 2024. He rushed it into service, which means he can connect to cellular devices from space. And turns out there are these uninterruptible power supplies connected via USB cords to the vote counting machines, tabulators, or the results machines that report the results. And from there, they had modems in them. They're attached to the vote, the election equipment. And so the theory here is that they subtracted 1 out of every 10 Democratic votes and maybe added 1 out of 10 Republican votes. Just so the algorithm kicked in, supposedly based on the data, the algorithm kicked in once the turnout in a precinct hit 60%. So there was this spike. The spike in Republicans and Democrats, they diverged right at about, and it didn't matter like the makeup of the precinct; it was consistent. And so anyway, so yeah, the 2024 election, and the 2016 election, and one of the straight lines through both is a company called VR Systems, which outside of Florida people don't talk about. There's the big names ESS and Dominion and Smartmatic, right? Those other ones. But VR Systems has got a lock on Florida, and they're in 8 of the states, and it's an election management platform, voter registration system, electronic poll books. They don't do tabulators. They don't count the ballots, but they process the ballot requests. They send them out and all that. And it's in the ballot request records that I found this anomaly. And it turned out after 6 months of litigation, that I was filing after I lost when I ran in 2024 for Congress to run against Luna. It turned out that what looked like massive mail ballot fraud turned out to be the mail ballot reports about the mail ballot activity by voters were falsified. So they were like false election bank statements of transactions that didn't happen. It's very strange, very weird. I call it the no ballot bug because the 2 ID verification fields in these reports, instead of a Y for yes, they provided their ID numbers, Florida driver's license and social, they were no, they were NN, which meant somebody ordered a ballot without presenting an ID when they ordered it online, right? Which is illegal. That ballot, if you believe the bank statements, the election bank statements to be true, then somebody's committing massive mail ballot fraud. Turned out it wasn't massive mail ballot fraud. It was falsified vote by mail official election records transmitted over the wire to candidates like me, political organizations, leaving us to believe that we had been built, because of massive mail ballot fraud. We all sued. Because of that, we felt we lost Democrats and Republicans down here. I was the only Democrat that sued. All the other ones were Republicans. And it turned out after 6 months of litigation, this a lawyer for the county made a mistake and said this thing to me on the phone, and I realized your election records are fake, right? The fraud I'm suing for really didn't happen. What it really happened is you knew you were publishing falsified election records, and you didn't say nothing about it. You didn't disclose it. You allowed me to rely on it because you were defending a litigation that I had brought against you. Anyway, so that's what happened in 2024. And then I ran for Gulfport mayor in Florida in 2025, and I ordered my own mail back. When I got my vote by mail report, my record was falsified in the same way. My false record said I ordered my ballot 3 days after I actually ordered it, and it said I hadn't provided my ID numbers when I ordered it when I did it. All right, so I filed a grand jury probe request, and took all these actions, criminal, complaints and stuff like that. And in this last week, I had filed a public records request to the state attorney's office, and I just won in court for the very first time. I just beat the Sixth Circuit State Attorney Bruce Bartlett in court this week, and the judge ordered him to produce the records that prove that this is a software defect with VR Systems that did this, and that they were publishing knowingly. I mean, it's one thing we got a bug, tell people we'll fix it, don't rely on the reports. it's quite another to keep publishing them and keep allowing folks like me to rely on them as if because we depend on these. Who do we mail material to if they voted already by mail? You don't want to send emails to them anymore. You don't want to spend money on that. You don't want to text them. You want to save your money. So that's why those reports exist. So it's this sort of election related fraud of a different kind about official election records being transmitted across interstate and intrastate wire when they're known to be fake election records.
I I had initially been after the 2024 election, I had initially been kind of cynical a lot of the Democrats' claim around election fraud and whether or not uh, election fraud had occurred in this recent election. And it seemed to bear a lot in common with the conspiratorial kind of thinking that a lot of people had after the 2020 election. And now that all of this election fraud information is actually starting to come out, and it really does seem like something nefarious happened here. If nothing else, I've felt for a while like even if you couldn't prove election fraud in a literal legal sense, there was still something deeply dishonest that happened in this past election in getting people to believe things that actively weren't true and vote actively against their own interests. And man, when you see how little understanding Republicans had of the platform that they supported, it's pretty
Yeah.
baffling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
We
one of the things, I was a Reagan Republican when I was in the Air Force for decades. I grew up in when he basically ended up bankrupting the Soviet, the USSR, and then the Bushes came along, and then Clinton came along, um, and then I ended up voting for Obama twice, and I had to vote for Hillary Clinton. I particularly liked her, but the other choice wasn't good. So anyway, I've gone through this. I've evolved as a human being, as I've gotten older and wiser and gotten the crap kicked out of me in life, and you have a different perspective. For example, when you're falsely imprisoned, like I was for 6 months, before being found not guilty in 5 minutes, I've seen that from the inside, the system mistreating people.
Yeah.
So that happened, by the way, if anybody wants to hear that story. I don't want to tell it, but I will I'll tell it.
As
I'll be
as
honest about this stuff.
as somebody who spent a night in a jail cell one time, which also a story in itself, I've become very, very sympathetic for what it is to spend any time whatsoever behind bars. I think it's something in general that society is very apathetic to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's quite a thing to endure. So I'd be very curious to hear a little bit about that if you're willing to share.
Well, another time. Um,
Okay.
it's distressing to have to go back and tell
Okay.
that
Yeah.
story, but
Yeah.
but
Understood.
but suffice it to say, I'm a male domestic violence survivor,
Yeah.
right? When I fled the home, filed for divorce, I got targeted, and I was hospitalized with bruises. But anyway, I got out of there, but I ended up when I filed it for divorce, getting falsely accused of what they were guilty of, the other side was guilty of. And everybody didn't no one believed my story, even though I was the one that had bruises, and the other side, no. And, the whole process was really stacked. I felt, right? It was sexual discrimination and as opposed to looking at the evidence, right? And, the trial lasted a whole 20 minutes, and the defense didn't put on a case. The whole case collapsed. There was no witnesses, nothing, no testimony, no evidence. And the evidence proved the opposite was true. That was there on my side. And the judge, after the prosecutor rested, it took him 3 seconds. He said, "All right, not guilty," and that was it. So I've been fighting my way back since then because I've got PTSD because of that. That was really traumatic part of my life. I lost my home, so I don't want to whine about that, but um, that happened. I've seen when I was in jail, there were 15 of us in this special cell block, 50 feet by 100 feet, five white guys, five black guys, five Hispanic guys, ICE people. They've been detained by ICE, and it was this intense, small situation where they ended up calling me the OG because I was the oldest guy. This is like when I was 57. And and, uh, and it was really, interesting. There's the the, um, the only guys that really creeped me out were a couple of the white guys. There was in with a pedophile and
Of course.
2 murderers were white guys, and then the black guys, um, um, I stood up to one of the murderers because he wouldn't he want I changed the channel on the TV. I couldn't take any more Jerry Springer. So he came up and threatened me with assault in the shower, and I wouldn't back down. And one of the black guys came up to me. I didn't think much of you, but you're the OG, right? I didn't even know what that was back then. It was the whole gangster. And then the the guys that get deported, they were all fine. They were all great. They were all there being detained, and they got to watch the Telemundo, right? And then the black guys got to watch the Black Network. I can't remember what it's called. And then there was white folks to watch their white programs. It was just a really interesting experience. So I got out, and ended up moving to Florida, trying to rebuild my life. And I've been fighting against um, this what I didn't realize was an Epstein child sex trafficking network. I didn't even know about Epstein back then. I've been actually fighting quietly against that, my own battle against it, and it's part of the reason why I declared war on child sex trafficking in my very first press release. I think we should take 100 billion of the mass deportation budget and move it over to deporting the pedophiles, the child sex traffickers, the kingpins, the bankers that enable them. Let's penetrate those networks, right? Infiltrate them, roll them up. And it's not just the little guys, and individual pedophiles. At the lower levels, it's the systemic, the guys and women, in some cases, that are running this corrupt, evil system.
Yeah.
We need to hack that system, right?
One of the
Yes.
Same thing goes with democracy. We need to hack back our democracy, which is being hacked, right? Counter hack.
one of the most baffling things to watch in this country these past couple years, I always felt like the Epstein issue would be such a breaking point with Trump supporters if it turned out that he was on the list, and that would just be one thing that people finally couldn't look past. And there were some people, a select number of Trump supporters, where I think that was finally their breaking point. But the sheer number of people who've been able to just turn their heads away at the fact that he's listed, what is it, 10,000, 100,000, a million times throughout the
Yeah.
files.
Well, if you notice
Madness.
it is madness, but the ones that seem to support him the most are and the church,
Yeah,
and I can't say
right,
it.
right.
And you know
I
what?
think it's because 'cause they're already indoctrinated. They already believe lies. They're already
Yeah.
easy to
Yep.
manipulate, and yeah.
So
I
the,
mean, and
the,
a lot of these kids grew up in that culture, so to them,
the
that's normal, in a
I,
way, which is sick, but I think that is a part of it as well.
so so I have a plan for that. In 2019, I wrote a book called The Grand Unifying Theory of Putin Trump. And I didn't publish it until 2022 when Putin invaded Ukraine. But it's basically, I treat this phenomenon, it's like an addiction. Because when I first heard Trump in 2015 or 2016 in his speech, there was like a draw there. I could feel a draw. There's the vibrato in his voice, the things he was saying. Not the Mexicans are murderers part, but some of his speeches, and I could feel the pull. And I was like, after a while, it's like, no way, racist. He's running on, fascist, racist stuff. And so I wrote this book. The subtitle, um, well, anyway, I wrote this book and I published it, and it basically describes it as an addiction. It's the MAGA siren song. It's like sirens, right? I don't like calling it a cult because that just doesn't resonate unless you're a Democrat, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
my thought.
Right, but to win here, I need the message in a way that resonates with swing voters, with moderate Republicans, and even some not so ridiculously radical MAGA supporters. And that's part of my value proposition here in this election. when I get to the primary and I'm going head to head with Luna, right? There are I would say, two issues that maybe 95 to 98% of all of us on both sides agree on. Unless you're a pedophile or sex trafficker, you're against child sex trafficking and child rape, right? And if you're not, get out, right? So that's a core issue, a value system. And then there's this corruption and election integrity issue, right? It's like 95% of Americans are against election fraud, right?
Mm.
And so how do you convince a Republican that their guy won using fraud? And how do you convince a Democrat that your guy or gal won because of fraud if you're a Republican, right? And how do you talk about the common ground instead of talking in a way that feels like dogma, political dogma and stuff. So one of the reasons I found Ballateer, Tenable Elections is our slogan, is to bring. I'm a STEM candidate in this race. I'm actually an electrical engineer, systems engineer, and so I've been developing Ballateer Analytics. It's sort of a 3 console AI-driven system that monitors and provides early warning in the run-up to elections of emerging threats to election integrity before the election, right? So it's one thing to get all crazy after the election. It's sort of too late. We've all seen that. But what I'm doing is early warning, surveillance and early warning by ingesting the data, that the artifacts that are output by the election systems and the candidates are allowed to get. And that's how I found this bug, actually, using this technology. So, and there are the Republicans that I talked about that were suing for the same reason down here. We've developed relationships and we share information because I only do it when I feel they're men or women of honor, right? People can go too far on that side, but we agree on this. And we've even talked about hosting a bipartisan events, election integrity, roundtables, right? But that's for the general election. I've got to get through the primary to get there. So election integrity, anti-election fraud, anti-child sex trafficking, and the other one is really anti-Russia, pro-Ukraine, because as Ukraine goes, so does Europe, right? If Ukraine falls, you know, flip side, if Ukraine, say, routs the Russian army in Crimea, mass surrenders, Putin will fall. And if Putin falls, Trump falls. He's his main benefactor. And if Putin falls and Trump falls, Luna falls. And the MAGA mob that supports, that doesn't want to support Ukraine, it's not just Luna. There's a lot of Republicans that don't. Um, they're like bowling pins, right? The lead bowling pin will tip the next one over. And
Where do
so,
you
yeah,
where do you feel that sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wonder, where do you feel our greatest ally fits into all this? You not feel like he's pulling Trump's strings a bit too?
I'm sorry, who our biggest
Uh,
ally is?
well, yeah, I kinda said that in a sarcastic way. Israel, our
Oh,
greatest
Israel.
ally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a supporter of Israel's right to exist and the
right.
Israeli people and the value system that it's supposed to be a democratic value system. But whether it's Israel or Russia and Ukraine or Israel and Lebanon and Gaza, and Trump with his tomahawking little girls in Iran, you start mass murdering kids. I don't care who you are, or sex trafficking kids. The main slogan for my campaign is "Kids first above all else." Right, and so it's Netanyahu that's the problem.
Oh,
Right,
yeah.
it's
His
Netanyahu
whole
and
that's
he's some of his people in Mossad. Right, and we're learning about this with the whole Epstein files coming out more and more and more. How deep, Ehud Barak was, one of the worst. And so I wouldn't take right now. I wouldn't take any APAC money until the bombs start. The ethnic cleansing stops and the destruction now of southern Lebanon after the destruction of Gaza. They had a right to counterattack and to take out Hamas. Every right to do that, as much as we did against Bin Laden after 9/11. But these be two guys wagging the dog, right, between Trump and Netanyahu. It's the next shiny new thing. Oh, Iran. Oh, Venezuela. Um, and so we've all become kind of numb about it. Um, but
I
his
think
time is
Netanyahu is the single greatest driver of anti-Semitism across the globe right now. It's been a sad time to be a Jew these last couple years and see all that he's done in that region.
yeah.
Agree. I agree. I see someone in the comments says, "Do you believe Native Americans has the right to exist in their homeland?"
Have some rights to
Exist in their homeland.
native. You're talking about Native
I
Americans.
assume, yeah, somebody said it in the comments here. Let's see, it says, "Do you believe Native Americans have the right to exist in their homeland?"
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that would also, I assume, be Palestinians. But
Yes,
so you're
absolutely.
more of a two-state solution type.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the rights of the people,
We have to get rid of Zionism for
right,
that to be a
isn't a function of
consideration.
your color or your religion, right, or your nationality. The rights of your children to a healthy life, to exist, to not be trafficked, universal health care, whether it's a public-private combination. Healthcare is a right, a human right in my mind. Um, so I'm more of a democratic socialist, I guess, as well as a hawk on national security and things like because of my background. So I'm this weird mix of like a MacGyver. I got all these skills and an amalgam of a belief system that I grew up Catholic, and then I fell out when I learned about the pedophilia cover-ups and things like that. I just couldn't donate money to a institution until it cleaned itself up. That was like that. But my mother made me go to church and Sunday school with my sisters, and I was a fidgety kid, and I hated it. But we did all sing in the folk group, and I played my ukulele. That's my first instrument. And those messages, those sermons, and those psalms, they've stuck with me my whole life. And now more than ever, the way we can speak to Republicans in a way that they resonates with them is like this. Think of the parable of the prodigal son, right? The To me, in my family members, certain family members too, they we need to give them an exit ramp and be willing to accept them back as prodigal sons and daughters that have lost their way, right? They've
Yeah,
been out there going after the money and the material and engorging themselves on materialism and stuff like that. Backing a child sex predator, a sex predator like Trump, abandoning their Christian beliefs, right, and belief system. I call it that there's going to be what I call a MAGA singularity moment. That moment in space, time, and circumstance when just in a moment, bam, everything changes in the minds of MAGA. And I believe that so strongly. I wrote a song about it, and I play it. It's called the MAGA Singularity, and I'm not going to sing it on camera because I don't think we have time. But basically, it it's an old riff on a George Jones tune that was called "He Stopped Loving Her Today." Well, my song is "They Stopped Loving Him Today," right? And so I'm a bit of a bard. I play guitar and I sing at some open mics down here, and it's sort of therapy for me. We're all like not suffering PTSD. We're suffering from what's the current version of it, ongoing and continuing SD, right? Uh,
Mhm.
uh, TSD,
sustained
Mhm.
traumatic
right?
disorder.
It's we all need
Yeah.
therapy. America needs therapy, and I've stopped watching the cable news. It's just I'm Substack now, right? I get my news from Eric Harness and Popok, Mike Popok, Katie Fang, and Acosta, and the folks like that. And so yeah, I had to. It was like addictive, right? During the first Trump administration, and even into the Biden, we were all addicted to like I was MSNBC, um, and now they're all captured. Pretty much all of the mainstream media. The oligarchs have bought them up. And so we got to seek independent media sources like the publishers and media folks, independent investigators on Substack, Ellie Leonard, the Epstein file investigator, folks like
I,
that.
I really liked what you said a couple minutes ago about giving Republicans an on ramp, because it's a really recurrent talking point that these people are so far gone that there's just no sense in ever trying to have a conversation with someone who disagrees with you in today's climate. And it really kind of incenses me sometimes how many people fall into that thinking that we just cannot talk to one another. And I think it's very important for us to, like you said, give an on ramp to some of these people as they come to these realizations finally about, yeah, I think we are getting to that breaking point, like you said, that singularity moment.
Don't ever give up trying to reach out, right? And
Yeah.
what I found campaigning, and I campaign, in red, towns here as well as, Democrat areas. But what I've learned is that the first thing I do or don't do is wear symbolism other than red, white, and blue. I wear a purple tie, not a blue tie. I wouldn't, not a red tie. I wear a purple tie. I wear my campaign signs. My campaign sign looks like this. Can you see it? It's
Yeah.
red, white, blue.
Nice.
It says built. You can't see it because it's blurry here. It says Building Florida, Saving America. And this is one of the last 25 signs I got left from my 2024 campaign. Can't afford to order any new one here. We're 20 days before the primary. Donate to johnforpinellas.com. Johnforpinellas.com. That's PINELLAS.com. That's our county down here. So the symbol, what I've learned is there's about 10 seconds when that very first visual interaction, well, the visual is first, and then the first sentence, you get maybe 10 seconds for the MAGA wall, like a Berlin Wall, right? To talk to a MAGA person.
Yeah.
So when I talk, to Republicans, the first thing I've test marketed this is, what are the words that get them to lean in a little bit, to want to hear the next thing you want to say?
Yeah.
Right. And the first thing you don't want to do is say Trump's a fucking asshole. Right.
Right.
Right. Um,
Maybe
but
that's why I don't have any luck.
you can get there. You can get there. But it's getting in the mind of your enemy, if you want to think of it that way. Think like your enemy. It's Sun Tzu stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It's put yourself in the mind. You've been living this. You've been drinking the Kool-Aid since 2016. Right?
I'm just
one of
about
my
to
biggest
leave that.
One of my biggest strategies in those situations is to begin with some minor concession of some sort. Let's say that I think that Biden and Harris fell short in this way and could have done better about this and
Exactly.
this. And
Exactly. Yeah.
and that just leaves them so much more receptive to anything you have to say about the shortcomings from their own side of the
The
aisle.
southern border is the perfect example.
Yeah.
Like, so that's an example. Like, I'm a strong supporter of a secure southern border, right? And I'm an engineer, and I've engineered a solution for it. We need a string of, like, a daisy chain of Ellis Islands across the southern border with high tech, with a ramped up processing of immigrants coming in to find a better life, filtering out the criminals and the sex traffickers and the gun runners and all that. That everybody gets a polygraph exam. If you don't voluntarily to take a polygraph, you don't even get into our immigration system. You just don't. We're not even going to let you in. Use technology, and even though they're not perfect, you can weed out, maybe 90%, reduce the criminals coming in without violating anybody's rights. So I talk in technology terms and value terms. Like, it's not like I believe in a strong southern border. I have a vision and an execution plan to secure the southern border. And as a son of Italian immigrants who came in through Ellis Island in the 20s or 30s or whatever, I never once heard my dad or any of my aunts and uncles talk about any mistreatment. Right. And I've been to Ellis Island at the museum and everything. I've seen my dad, my family's names in the books. And so we can do immigration and even deportation humanely without having to violate people's. I mean, this ridiculous. This is why I actually put me over the tipping point to run again. I wasn't going to run again. I just founded this company. It was the Alex Preddy and Renee Good, full blooded murders. I was like, all right, I'm not going to sit on the sidelines. This is 10 times worse than 2016, 100
Yeah.
times worse than 2016, and I'm not going to let it happen on my watch. And I'm going to put my body, my physical being, out front, not not have your back, but I'm going to be out front and at the sides and your back, and I'm going to take on these slings and arrows that MAGA's going to throw at me, so they're not throwing it at everybody else. Right?
Right.
I will take all this hatred, and I will cram it down and crap it out so that you don't have to deal with this shit. And I will go into these communities, to the red communities, and I don't want to say preach exactly, but I've learned a few Bible verses, like the prodigal son, and um,
It's not like they follow their Bible anyway.
Right.
yeah, and you can't like shove that in their face. You have to say, well, think about what Jesus said about this, right? Where do you stand on what Jesus thought about this? Like, whatsoever you do to the least of my brother, that should do unto me. That's a psalm that we sing in Catholic Church.
Well, I
That's
respect you for being able to talk to them. I've tried, but I feel like for me personally, we've gotten to a place where anyone, and I do understand that they've been manipulated and limited education and da 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 da. I just have a hard time communicating with someone that I know hates people merely because of an assumption and not because of they met them, they spoke to them, or they know something or whatever, just because of the way they look or what
yeah.
they think they do behind closed doors or whatever. Like I literally I just start getting this rage inside of me where I'm like,
Yeah.
what is wrong with you? And I can't say, oh well, I kind of agree, and so I'm gonna leave that up to y'all and not be over here like just screaming about everything else.
It
'Cause I just I don't do well at that. I think I probably start out with, Trump sucks, and it just goes downhill from there, you know?
I think that it is a kind of privilege that I have in that I'm not so horribly affected by anything that's happened just yet that I feel incapable of having these conversations. I think that if I had been one of these people whose family members were deported, that I wouldn't be able to have a civil interaction with somebody in the situation. So there's definitely some privilege involved there, I think.
Yeah, use
But
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
but But yeah, I've always tried to be someone who can converse with those people who I disagree with. It's especially in these past couple years. I feel like we've really gotten to a place where everything is so binary and everybody is so absolutist on every new issue. And most of the time, if I really take some time and think about it, I can find some of the faults in the ways that Democrats are talking about new issues, and I can find some faults in the ways that Republicans are. And
definitely.
more often than not, there is more of a middle ground than what the media points you toward.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's
So
divided. The media,
so
anyway.
Yeah.
so what Biden? So thank God Biden won. I mean, I really like Biden in his younger days when he was a senator, except for the Anita Hill thing and Clarence Thomas thing. I didn't like that, but um, let's talk about Biden and Harris for a second. Too slow on the uptake. He just gave Trump and MAGA the biggest two vulnerabilities that he didn't have to give them. Southern border, it took him 3 years to get his act together on the southern border and actually try to pass legislation. We should have been on that, because letting that fallow for 3 years just gives MAGA, something to
I
hang
I
on.
personally think that was intentional because he planned on running a second term, and I think he wanted that to be something to run on. So I don't think he ever intended to do anything with the immigration or the border until his second term. And I think he always intended on it to be this.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm,
his
I don't
my
think
generation
he's
parents,
able to.
you know what I mean? Just,
his
I don't.
generation could not conceive of what was coming
I
and
don't
what
think
has
he's able to look that far in the future.
now. Yeah. And then the
mean,
the other big thing was, well, the second thing with Biden was Iran. Not Iran, but was Ukraine and Russia, right? It was I founded a media platform called Russie Leaks. It's the anti-wiki Putin leaks. And in 2022, after Ukraine was invaded, and I started trying to flip the script on Putin with psychological warfare, information warfare, supporting the Ukrainian people. I developed connections in Ukraine. I hired a Ukrainian translator in Kyiv. I have artists that I commissioned to do works over there that allow me to use their works in my Rusty Leaks articles. I have to put Rusty Leaks to the side for now, but you can go to rustyleaks.com and read some of my articles that are still up there. It's kind of stale though. And so on Ukraine, the incrementalism, same thing with Obama, when they invaded Crimea, right? He just sort of gave a pass. But Biden, I was calling on, screw the F-16s. Let's send him F-35s and teach him how to be fishers of these MiGs that Russia's sending over. Let's send an Aegis missile cruiser up into the Black Sea, right, and close the sky. Help them close the skies over Ukraine because they're bombing kids, they're bombing civilians, and it's still going on, right?
What's your thoughts about Ukraine joining in on bombing Iran?
They didn't bomb Iran, actually.
The boat or their tanker, I guess.
Well, that's the story that the mainstream media wants you to hear. There's arms trafficking. They sold them all of they gave them all their Shahed drones at the outside of the war.
Right.
In return for nuclear technology. I don't know if you all heard that part of it, but I published an article on Rusty Leaks back in 2022 about that. I got the intel on that, and before anybody really knew the drones were coming from Iran, actually. And so they're shipping, the Caspian Sea. There's Iran at the bottom, then south of it, and Russia's up here, right? And it's just trafficking weapons. Those are legitimate targets. And I mean, they're not bombing the homeland, right? They're interdicting weapon shipments that are killing their civilians on the sea, right? That's fair game. That's fair game.
Guess that's explained that way. It sounds a little different.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be hit. I mean, they wouldn't. I can't imagine they go off the mainland.
I would hope not.
Iran proper, but
I was personally disappointed to hear it. But like you said, I didn't look into it yet. But I was taking it just the mainstream media's narrative that they joined in, with attacking Iran. And I was disappointed to hear that, honestly.
That's actually coming from Russian. It's Russian propaganda, actually, right? Because they've been interdicting those ships for a long time. Did you know that they bombed ships in the past?
I mean, no, I guess not. Not everything that's happened. I haven't.
I mean, it was the first. I didn't know either, right? It's not like I'm all knowing, but I read Euromaidan Press, Euromaidan Press, EUROMAIDAN Press.org is the best source. They publish in English. They cover the war with Russia and all that, and that's the best way to get your what's going on in the Ukraine war situation. And that's how I learned about that. So I recommend that to everybody. Euromaidan Press.
I'll have to check into that.
Good trustable source. And now we're going to have to depend on your Ukrainian drones, right? Because they're the best in the business now. So good for them. I look at Zelensky as their George Washington, right?
Right.
Crossing Delaware, rallying his troops. I don't need ride. I need ammo. That inspired me to incorporate Rusty Leaks back in 2022. The way he handled himself and all that. So not that they don't have corruption over there. Right.
He's got to
deal with corruption just like any government. And so there's that. It was incrementalism with Ukraine instead of doubling and tripling down, because the faster we could ship, the more we could ship, the fastest, we would have been in a different spot right now. And so that I criticized them openly on that back in 22, 23 when I was running the last time. And so that was the second. And then, of course, there's the Merrick Garland too slow, no go, right? Oh, my God. It took them 3 years, to get indictments?
Yeah, that's absurd.
Jack Smith, when I'm president, Jack Smith's my attorney general. That guy's great. We're going to eventually get that hidden and second indictment that Judge Eileen Cannon's keeping, out. And quite frankly, if I were Jack Smith right now, I'd frickin' leak it and I'd get asylum and seek asylum in Canada, because he knows what's in that. And he's like He said as much as he's willing to say. It's just not the time to be careful now. It's time to take
Yeah,
this. We got
There
to
were there
take.
were there
definitely.
were 1,001 failings that needed to happen for it to get to this point, but I still, when I think about the, Biden, Harris administration, I think one of their single biggest failings was to just so willingly hand over power. Even if the election result seemed to indicate that they lost, Trump was so openly anti-democracy that it it strikes me as their complete duty in that moment to just deny him the office. I don't know if they really had the legal means of doing it, but the fact that they just handed over the keys to the White House like
Oh,
that
you
and
know
just
what?
gave
You
him
know
the
what I found?
tour and
What I found fascinating about that interim between the loss and January 6th, right? This time, 24, was that the Supreme Court had just said, President, you got immunity. As long as you're doing official duty,
right,
you're. So the first thing that popped in my head was,
Use it, Biden. Yeah,
right. No,
the
seriously,
first thing
yeah.
I
yeah.
popped in my head, Guantanamo, Trump, just send him to Guantanamo and let the courts fight it out for the next 3 years, right? Let just Guantanamo his ass, invoke your presidential immunity.
Yeah,
So even if you're breaking the law, who cares? You're immune, right?
apparently allowed. Yeah.
You have the power to
Well, I
do that.
think that would have his little minions would have probably, especially then,
Yeah.
would have flipped out
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
would have. I mean, we would have had to round up people all over the U.S. and ship them to Guantanamo Bay too. Which I don't know. That would have been horrible because they are, in my opinion, some of the worst among us. But I think they would have stepped up and been like, our pedophile king is being mean to him. It's
Yeah.
ugh,
It would have probably been a civil war or civil conflict of some sort, but we may very well end up in that place anyway, so may not necessarily have been such a bad thing.
right.
Well, I believe in practice in every day, various acts of creative nonviolence, put myself out there. I'm not a violent person. I had a bit of a rough teenage years, and I got through that. And engaging in creative nonviolent ways of flipping the minds of people. It's planting it all. It's like planting a seed, right?
Mhm.
And so when I write a song like "They Stopped Loving Him Today," the MAGA singularity, I'm like, this is my vision for the future. This is it is going to happen. The only question is
Yeah,
when, right? And so by singing the song and saying those words and playing and strumming the guitar to an audience, right, from a stage or here on on Substack. I have, by the way, if you go to the Bleed, that's my Substack publication. I've got some of my videos up there. Actually, I think this song's up there too. The magazine.
perfect.
But it's I have these if there's one thing I am and have been all my life is a visionary. And and I envision what we're in right now. I saw it and I wrote a book about it that sort of predicted this, the grand unifying theory of Putin Trump. And so I see this evil that's coming years ahead of it. It's time. And now I'm envisioning um, a return to normalcy, how we capture back American values, how we defeat Putin, how we defeat the child sex trafficking network, and I can see it. I can see it in my mind. I can sing about it. I already know the next 100 chess moves, right?
Perfect.
And getting from where we are to where we need to be. Here's my strategy. Here's the mission. Here's the timeline. Here are the investments we need to make. Here's what we need to do. And and as much as I love Michelle Obama, and I did, her when they go low, we go high. Uh-uh. When they go
Works
low,
for her.
when they go low, we snap kick them in the face, and then we put them down on the ground. Rhetorically,
Yeah, I like that.
violence, rhetorically, when they say libtard, we say magtard, right? When they say woke, we say Trump woke. Trump woke your ass. I'm woke for Jesus. How about you? Right? It's the the quick
Tit
reaction,
for tat.
right?
Yeah.
um, and you put their value system that they claim to have, back on them, and so, it's not the time. My favorite, Patrick Swayze movie of all time. You guys ever see, Roadhouse, where he was a
Mhm.
bouncer?
I
Yeah,
haven't.
there's that
Oh,
scene
yeah,
where
it's a good one.
there's the fight going on, and, guys, molesting a woman or something, and the bouncer wants to go after him, and he says, "Not yet." He said, "There's a time to be nice, and there's a time to not be nice.
Yep.
This is the time we need to not be nice, Democrats. All right? Nice, is nice, and we're too nice, Democrats. Like Michelle Obama said, there's a time to go high, and there's a time to not go high, right? And when I say not go high, I'm talking about, I was trained as a spy, right? I was in signals intelligence, right? So we need to be better spies. We need to think more like Sun Tzu, right? And a little less, like what, Michelle Obama was talking about. My value, my differentiate, my the what differentiates me in my race is I'm the visionary, right? And and I'm a spy, in my way even now, and I have connections in those worlds, that, I feel like there's some guardian angels out there looking over, because I get warnings and stuff sometimes.
It's hard to say how, effective it was now, but it felt in the moment like, Harris really playing into the turning the bullying back on Trump for a bit was very effective, and just playing
Mhm.
into the, "Oh, he's weird." It's it seemed like it was working a lot better than saying, "Oh, he's a fascist, he's so dangerous." And
Mhm.
like I said, it's tough to say what good that ultimately did, or if it was all ultimately void anyway because of election fraud issues, but in the moment, it really felt like there was an ingeniousness to that strategy.
Yeah, I think,
Mhm.
the Democratic Party, elite, the establishment is, fighting the last war, right? They haven't risen to the moment, and that's what how I'm different too in my primary. And the question is, who of the 3 of us is not only capable of rising to the moment, I'm already fighting for voter rights. I've filed 2 lawsuits down here in Florida to defend the voting rights of all Floridians. I just beat a Sixth Circuit state attorney who's been keeping secret this falsification of election records that's been going on since 2024. And I'm doing it with out of my Social Security check, and with the little bit, I'm able to raise, in donations, in the campaign, right? So these are legal expenses that like I'm suing as a candidate, right? Because I'm a voter and I'm suffering harm as a candidate, and I'm the only candidate that is suing in Florida, right? It's like I'm
Which we'll
here in
share.
Florida, and the Florida Democratic Party gives me no help. No legal help, no funding. It all goes to the lawyer. One of my opponents is a lawyer who I invited to join me as plaintiff and got nothing but ghosted, right?
Which for
So
everybody that's listening, I'll be sure to share your case and the, email that you got that was basically a smoking gun. That way, can maybe catch everybody up that wants to be, um, you know, to know where you're at with this with your case and what's going on since we didn't get to go over it as much in this chat. If everybody wants to just put ones in the chat, if you guys want me to drop the information in there for you.
yeah, yeah, you mentioned the smoking gun email.
Mhm.
There's always a smoking gun, right, in a scandal and a cover up. So I
So
want
great that you got that.
a quick story of this. So I sued Ron DeSantis in 2024 in August, and that ended up getting dismissed in Tampa in federal court. I sued, VR Systems, DeSantis again in Washington D.C. When I discovered these records were being falsified, um, and I wasn't getting anywhere. Right, I didn't have a lawyer. I'm doing the best I can, and then I decided I'm going to file a Florida Public Records request with the Sixth Circuit State Attorney's Office, which is the office in which I filed the criminal complaint that they closed in 45 days without ever even interviewing the victim. right? They interviewed the perpetrators, the supervisors of elections people that I was accusing of covering up, election records fraud. They interviewed them. They didn't interview me. They closed the case. The software's working as designed. Nothing to see here. No crime. Right. So I filed this public records request with them, the supervisor of elections, because the public records request I responded to by the state attorney uh, didn't produce the email that they talked about in the investigative report. So I ended up going to the supervisor and say, "Give me these records," and they gave me this email that was from the supervisor of elections to the state attorney's office. It was the investigator talking to the general counsel, and the general counsel produced this email, and the state attorney did not. Right? There's two sides of the same communication. One followed the law, sort of. They produced it. They acknowledged it existed and gave it to me. While the state attorney, the lead law enforcement,
Withheld it.
right, they didn't just withhold it; they concealed its existence.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Well, that was a smoking gun. They
so,
couldn't give it to you.
so I got it through a public records request, and I didn't get it from the law enforcement organization. And I'm like, what's going on here? It's like this RICO enforcement enterprise that with DeSantis, well, really Trump at the top, DeSantis, and then it rolls down to all the state attorneys and all the supervisor elections. Just this command and control system, right? Where they're all covering up that this email revealed that it was a quote software database issue. And I was like, okay, they told me it was a process issue, and so there's no crime, right? Process issue, and they put that in the investigative report. A process issue is not a software database issue, right?
Yeah.
Process is somebody's following the wrong process, right? And maybe they're using software to do it, but a software database issue, there's something wrong with the software in the database, and they redacted the rest of the email. But those software data, those 3 words, database software issue, that's the smoking gun. Then I've been litigating for 6 months or like over a year now. And so I just this past Monday, I got a court order finding where I won the case, at least initially. The judge found that they had illegally withheld these records. He's ordered them to produce all the records, to produce a records exemption log for any record that is responsive to my request that they want to redact partially or whatever. They have to have an exemption log, a record by record exemption log. So the court has ordered them to produce the records, the log at least to me, produce the records to me that aren't exempt, and the judge gets to look at the records unredacted in camera in his chambers, right? So I've just got a judge to order them to pony up the covered up records, right? So that just happened on Monday, and that's just I've been doing this for 2 years trying to break through. And that's the very first time I've gotten a judge to say, pony up the records. You're breaking the law. And you're the law enforcement officer. And they tampered with one of my witnesses.
Oh,
They,
wow.
they threatened the investigator that was assigned to my case that he would be prosecuted for a crime if he talked on the witness stand when I questioned him about this trade secret. They're calling it a trade secret, right? Software defect that falsifies election records. We can't give you, anything about that because it's a trade secret. Come on. A trade secret is something that gives you competitive advantage, right? You need, and you keep it secret, right? In this case, their own users manuals they published on the internet talk about this defectively designed software feature that was overriding ballot request dates with the date of a batch import. They're overriding immutable election transaction record dates with the date of an import, right? It's just ridiculous. So
Yeah, and wasn't the state's attorney involved in all this? And even his own ballot was
yeah, so one of the
was
things
giving.
I put in my complaint for the public records thing was the state attorney's own, just like mine, his own vote by mail election records have the same no ballot bug defect that mine do and hundreds of thousands of other people do. So I moved to recuse him from the case, but the judge wouldn't go that far. So that's in my complaint too, right? He can't be the one presiding over a criminal
What
investigation
I thought, yeah,
where
like
his own vote by mail records are. He's not. He didn't commit fraud. His records are false, right?
right, but
And
he
I'm
didn't
trying to prove the
lie.
records were false by asking him for the records, and he won't produce the records, and his own record's false, right? And what's really going on here is they're desperate. They're getting more and more desperate to continue to cover up this software defect that VO Systems is a politically protected election software vendor that gets all the sole source contracts out of Tallahassee, right? They're controlled. The integration of the Republican Party of Florida, the DeSantis administration, law enforcement, the Florida Division of Law Enforcement, the state attorneys, and even some of the judges. Not this one. This one did some good thing. They're all working to keep this from coming out. The whole system. The legislature is supermajority Republican in Florida, so it's the legislative branch, it's the executive branch, and some of the judiciary, right? Where you can't get a hearing, right? So it's been 2 years of fighting, and I just broke through. I just punched the first hole in the dike down here in Clearwater, and then I'm going to punch another hole in the dike. I've challenged oh, I didn't talk about that. I filed a lawsuit against DeSantis challenging his gerrymander map down here that he just got passed. Right? It got so they mixed up all the districts so that there's only 4 Democratic strongholds left, and so the Trump thing, and so I sued. I'm the only candidate suing to reverse the map, and here we are. I got 20 days left before my primary. I'm being damaged every day because the voters that knew me the best were South Pinellas County voters, which is where I lived before and where I ran for mayor. Gulfport is South County, all damaged in the 2 hurricanes, all the South Pinellas County beach communities and stuff. I was exposing corruption in DeSantis administration and disaster recovery fraud when I ran for mayor. So I have a lot of name recognition, more than up North County than down county, more down county than North County. So they've mass deported over 125,000 Democratic and non-party affiliated voters that would vote against Anna Luna in the general election to vote her out of office because she threw our beach communities under the bus after those hurricanes. So the anti-Luna bloc, they mass deported them across 2 bays, Ocasawega Bay and Tampa Bay, over to Manatee County, which is too red to make a difference for Democrats, right? And just basically disenfranchised those Democratic votes and stripped away the people that know me best in South Pinellas County. So in my lawsuit, I called this is another attack on election integrity of a different kind. So it's not hacking an election machine, it's hacking the system of who gets to vote for who and whose votes get turned into useless votes. So I call it the DeSantis Luna protection racket because it violates the Constitution of Florida in 2 ways. One, there's a requirement for geographic compactness. You can't deport people, their voting rights across a bay. And we're on a peninsula down here in Pinellas County, right? So we're the most geographically compact county or district in Florida, pretty much. And if you want to redistrict because of population changes and stuff, the only way to do it legally in Florida is to come down from the north of the peninsula, right? But up north in this county are a lot of red votes, right? So what they did was they took the more liberal votes down here, the Democratic votes, and they deported them across the bay. Right?
Yeah.
So geographic compactness is a violation. Violating that's a violation of the Constitution. The other one is you can't do it for partisan reasons or to protect an incumbent. So those are actually 2 subcategories, right? Because the incumbent could be Republican or Democrat, but the partisan, it could be partisan too. So I'm the only one that's invoking the Luna the anti-incumbent aspect. The other people that are suing, like Mark Elias, the Elias Group, they're suing.
My battery is very quickly inching toward an untimely death. So I may need to draw this to a close. I see we've been going for a bit over an hour now, but if you wanted to say anything on your end, John, about where we can support you.
Oh, sure. So you can, if you want to avoid transaction processing fees and you use Zelle, you can Zelle me directly at I should type it in, right? It's John@johnforpinellas.com. Pinellas.com. So you can Zelle there directly. You can email me there too. That's my email. Or you can go to my campaign website, which is johnforpinellas.com or pinellas.com, and see where I'm on the issues. And there's a donate button there. And just so you all know, the maximum you can donate as an individual in the primary is $3,500. And the minimum is $1. I don't think you can go below $1. But you can
Don't.
also pre-donate another $3,500 for the general election. You just earmark it, right? So there's the website for the campaign. It's a low budget site. Don't expect flashy. I don't have consultants. I do social. I'm a techie. I can, do some of that. But I deliberately did not invest a lot of time in making it, it's tough.
If
Right?
you want to throw the or I can do it afterwards, but there was some people that wanted to see the court case and
Oh, yeah.
email. So if you want to throw it in the chat, you can. Otherwise, is it better to put it on the end because I don't want it to cut out?
Well, actually, there's a lot about it.
It probably would be better to just include it in the final.
Let me give you my Substack. It's in my Substack feed. And you can download some of the court record, not the most recent. I should publish those too, the most recent. So the last article I published was "Bring Me the Declaration of Alina Garcia." She's the supervisor of elections down in Miami-Dade, and I'll put the link in here. This is a recent. So if you go to there, that takes you to my Substack, the Bleed feed, and that's the most recent article I've published there. And I'm not sure what I really need to do is publish the court records. I do have I can upload a file, right? Sure.
Yeah, it might cut you out just because if he loses, I don't know how that will work. But I did go in and add on the comments saying that I would share it with people. So if you want to put it on, one of us will get it up there. But I'll make sure that everybody has the information because I think people are interested. Even if we have a couple people, that's good. It'll start multiplying from there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, John. It was a delight talking to you both.
Yes.
Thanks for the invite and for the platform. I really appreciate you platforming a non-establishment backed Democratic candidate who's,
that's what we're here for.
And I appreciate you doing what you're doing.
I don't have $1 million, but I got a million ideas.
Hey, that's where to start.
Luna's a physically beautiful woman, and my two opponents are beautiful too. There's a history teacher, Brant, and Leela Gray, who's a retired brigadier general, Army general, and they're beautiful people. And I got to tell you, I cannot compete on the battlefield of physical beauty with either Luna or my two opponents. I mean, he's got like Adonis kind of long hair and stuff. But I have my strong points. I'm a fighter. I'm an Air Force veteran, electrical engineer, entrepreneur. I'm fighting for the little people and for the middle class, and I'm fighting for you. I'm already doing it. I'm not waiting till I'm in office. I'm not out here begging for money. I mean, did you hear me ask for money for this?
Yeah.
I should ask for money. I'm asking for your votes and for your help. I need help. I'm facing a big machine here, a Democratic machine that's assembled against me here, and that's happening all over the country with grassroots Democrats. This is a trend. They cherry pick. We didn't even have a primary with Harris, right? We didn't get to see Josh Shapiro on stage. We didn't get to see Val Demings. We didn't get to see Gretchen Whitmer or Cory Booker. I would like to see them all competing, right? And the party deprived us of that. And they keep selecting, we know best. The voters don't know best. We're going to feed the voters what we think. So that's not working.
People are sick of that. Yeah.
That's worked since 2016. Stop doing it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for what you're doing. We need more of the Democratic Socialist candidates. That's what people want to see.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.